What's up, duelists? This last weekend was RBET 3 Season 2, huge online tournament, 194 players, Edison format, aka OTS Time Wizard April 2010 format. If you're new to the format, of course, join the Discord in the description below. You can learn all about it there, of course. These are the top 8 deck lists from that event. Everybody's been asking me, oh my gosh, Keegan, where's the top 8 deck list? And I'm getting them out to you as soon as humanly possible, as soon as YouTube will allow me to upload them. So this is the first 8th place deck list. Kapachi, very powerful duelist. He was actually killing it in Swiss. He had a really strong run until he lost, I think, a couple games towards the end of the Swiss bracket. This is his Blackwing list. It's pretty straightforward. There's a few tech cards that I think are pretty cool. He's got one main deck Compulsory, one main deck Dust Tornado. Those are two really strong tech cards. He's got a full 15 trap cards. I'm not exactly sure if that's good or bad or whatever, but it seemed to work out well for him. He wasn't playing stuff like Mind Control. He elected to just play more defensive cards, and so he was looking to set 5 as often as possible. Sideboard looks fairly straightforward. Only one deck dev did not predict a lot of fairies, and he was pretty correct on that. There was not very many fairies that entered the event. It was, again, just a lot of Blackwings, a lot of hero. The hero beat decks, again, underperformed. Kind of impressive how much hero beat there was in the tournament compared to 0 of them getting top 8. There was also 0 hero beat decks in top 8 of DDV4, which was the last major Edison tournament. So it's kind of weird to see that deck not necessarily fall off, but have such a high representation and then have absolutely no conversion into top 8. Pretty interesting stuff. Overall, it's a fairly straightforward Blackwing list. If you need more guides on this deck, I have hella guides on my channel. You can check it out. Shoutouts to Kapachi, and congrats for getting your invite. At another 8th place list, or 5th place list, technically at Swiss, there's 4 5th place lists in top 8. So the next one is Pina, aka Diego. Shout out Diego. This is his frog list, or their frog list, sorry. This is their frog list, and yeah, this deck is sick. This deck looks really fun. Got the double Thessalos, Dark Dust, triple Fader, triple Econ. Just 3 of all the best cards, honestly. Double Soul Exchange, triple Raigeki Break, and Mirror Force to make sure they don't lose to any bullshit. Really solid deck list, solid looking deck list. 2 Junk Synchrons and the Unifrog to help poke it back row. Junk Synchron gives you a way to play through Mask of Restrict, and Unifrog gives you a way to play through Pulling the Rug. So these are important cards to have, more so in Game 2 and Game 3, but also in Game 1 it's kind of nice to have that like infinite resource. There's a cool loop with Junk Synchron and Swap Frog where if you summon Junk Synchron, you can special Swap Frog back. And even though Swap Frog's effect is negated, it bounces a card on your field for cost. So you can bounce that Junk Synchron again. It gives you kind of an infinite loop of a defender in that Swap Frog. Yeah, extra deck looks straightforward. You got to have the tons of level 5s for your Junk Synchron plays. The side deck is pretty interesting. They've got double Super Poly. So this card is pretty good against the hero decks. You can use either your Treeborn Frog and their hero, or you can use 2 of their heroes to make your own Absolute Zero or Super Alloy Beast Rapidness if they have double Alias in play. This card is pretty crushing versus Hero Beat. They don't really have ways to deal with it. Usually if one of these resolves, you're going to win the game. Triple Vanities, you got to have them. They're just too good against the unfair decks. Double DD Crow, I've been seeing anywhere between 1 to 3 DD Crows in the Frog sideboards. Double Sirocco, this helped him deal with Blackwings, or helped them deal with Blackwings. 1 Compulsory is super interesting, and 1 D-Prison as well. Just a lot of trap cards, defensive trap cards, and that 1 Torrential Tribute. So I think we've seen every Frog deck that's topped in the last 6 or so months has been playing Torrential Tribute somewhere in the deck. Something to consider, because Torrential Tribute's a really strong card, and it's kind of hard to really forfeit playing that card in any deck, let alone a deck that can actually kind of take use of it with setting Treeborn Frog or setting Duke Frog on the first turn of the game. So pretty solid stuff. This deck list looks really solid. It looks like there's a lot of holes covered, basically. That's going to be their first top 8, I believe. So congratulations. Yon Dame, this was one of the repeat top 8s. Yon Dame has top 8'd before. This is a really interesting list. I mean, got the double Vayu in case you draw one of them, you still have 1 in deck, and you got double Legacy of Yatagrasu to bait spell and trap removal, and double Book of Moon to help play through things like Royal Decree. Double Book of Moon it's really good when it's good, and when it's bad, it just feels terrible. It's pretty bad versus Hero Beat specifically, but it's pretty good versus every other matchup. So if you can fade Hero Beat, which I'm not sure if Yondaime did or not, but if Yondaime did, then the Book of Moons were probably very good. Extra deck straightforward, sideboard incredibly straightforward. Just 2 of like I think the most commonly played sideboard cards and 2 deck devs, and that's pretty much it. So pretty straightforward stuff. If it ain't broke, why fix it? If your opponents aren't going to bring fairies, don't bring the hate. Just do what you got to do. All right, next deck list. Congrats to Yon Dame on a top 8 finish. This is the one that I probably clickbaited. But before I get into the deck explanation on this deck, I do got to talk about some upcoming events. I've got 2 upcoming major IRL events. IRL RBET Moreno Valley on August 19th, hosted in part by Collectible Exchange. This is a Konami-sanctioned IRL Edison format, aka OTS Time Wizard 2010 April, I can't even say it right, tournament, and the prizes are insane for this event. The signups are now open. You can scan this QR code, or you can find signups in the link. There's a sign-up link in the description below, as well as if you've joined my Discord, you can find it in the events tab there as well. The prizes for this are insane. There's like first place gets a Shonen Jump Dark End, second place gets a PlayStation 5. There's like so many other things. And similarly, the other event I'm throwing on October 7th, RBET Orlando with Versus Games, another Konami-sanctioned major Edison format event, over 200 players. Also, Shonen Jump Dark End to first, so massive events. These are going to be the premier events of this year. These are going to be the events you don't want to miss. So get signed up for them while you can. The signups are now open. Okay, back to this deck list. Not this one. That was a spoiler. This deck list. Top 8 Neo-Spatians. So this deck is really interesting. We haven't really seen this deck do too much. I mean, that's cap. We've seen it do some things, but not to this extent. We saw Carpath use an engine to top 8 an RBCT last year, which is a really big charity tournament, functionally an RBET. But this is the first time we're seeing it completely pushed to this level with the triple debris, triple junk synchron. Carpath was using a little bit different of an engine. This is a very interesting deck. So the way it works is you use Armageddonite or you use Foolish Burial to send Crossbow to the graveyard, and you'll search a Neo-Spatian. So you get an auto +1. Foolish Burial becomes a Rhoda for your Neo-Spatian, or Rhoda becomes can turn your Armageddonite into a Jank Stratos by sending Cross-Border and searching one of your Neo-Spatian monsters. Then, if your Armageddonite dies, you can convert Contact, set up your graveyard for any number of your 9 payoff cards. You've got Chaos Sorcerer, Dark Armed, Dark Samorg, Triple Debris Dragon, and Triple Junk Synchron. Debris Dragon and Junk Synchron are just high-value normals. You summon them, you get a special summon back, either Cross-Porter, Dandelion, Glowmoss if you absolutely have to, Treeborn maybe. You summon back these cards, and then you get to make either a 1-card synchro, or you just have 2 bodies for the price of 1 card, which is really solid. And then, of course, these 3 boss monsters are crazy. Dark Samorg, Dark Armed, and Chaos Sorcerer all go crazy. Barcode had one of the better records in Swiss as well, if I remember correctly, so it's a pretty sweet deck to see do well. In the sideboard, he's got 2 Mask of Restricts to sort of stop frogs. His deck doesn't tribute summon all that much. It does have that 1 random Treeborn frog, but I'm assuming it's only there to really help fix synchro numbers and to be a value discard to Raigeki Break. There's not that much in this deck you can really tribute summon besides the 2 Cyber Dragons and the Dark Samorg. So I don't think the Treeborn Frog is really being tribute fodder, and you could probably side it out for that Mask of Restrict if you're bringing it in versus frogs. Also, Triple Dust, got to deal with Royal Oppression. This deck does not like Royal Oppression, hence probably why he has the 2 Raigeki Breaks as additional outs to that, since he is not playing Raiko. And the 3rd Raigeki Break in the sideboard, another way to out Royal Oppression. So a lot of interesting stuff in the sideboard. The extra deck is pretty interesting too. It fits with the monsters he has. He has the level 5s, the level 4s. He has Avarice to make sure he can reuse them. He has level 6s. He has 2 Iron Chains for his debris. He has Black Rose, Ancient Fairy, and all the Dragon Synchros for his debris as well. One thing that he could maybe consider trying to fit in here is, instead of 1 Chimera Tech, because he does have the Avarices, he could play a Trident Dragon. Iron Chain plus Debris, which you can use off Call of the Haunted. Let's say it turns Debris plus Call of the Haunted into a 2-card OTK setup, which I feel like if you're playing Call of the Haunted and Debris Dragon in your deck, you should always have Trident Dragon in your extra deck for that option select. So if you're looking at picking up these cards or playing this deck, definitely consider getting a Trident Dragon as well. It is definitely one of those cards that can become an OTK out of nowhere in this style of deck. Shoutouts to him, Barcode. Honestly, Barcode always plays really creative stuff, and he's definitely a player who's going to be on my radar moving forward. One of the stronger players to do it right now. Very, very cool stuff. And now we're getting into top 4. Top 4, we have Chai T's Diva Hero, Destiny, Diva Hero, Diva Destiny Hero, Destiny, Diva Hero, Malicious Hero, Evil Guy Hero. Yeah, no, sick deck. Very sick deck. This is a classic. And by a classic, I mean like a new classic. This is like a song that came out last year but was an instant classic, basically. That's what Diva Hero is. This list looks really solid. He's got the main deck Mind Crush. He doesn't have upstarts to hit that Dust Shoot, Mind Crush, Serotonin blast, but you know, he's going to hit it some percentage of the games. He's got the 1 Gold Sarcophagus, kind of an interesting 4th Miracle Fusion, or it can search for your Dark Arm too. You can just search for some good stuff in this deck. I really like that he's playing Dark Grepher. I think Dark Grepher opens a lot of doors to this deck that it normally kind of lacked. Some of the worst hands this deck has is when you open up Malicious, and Dark Grepher lets you convert those hands into real stuff thanks to Dark Grepher plus Plague. So it fixes your bad hands, which is exactly what you want out of a card, is you want something that's going to make your bad hands better. And that's exactly what Dark Grepher does. The extra deck is really interesting. He's actually made room for Super Alloy Beast Rapidness because he wants to take advantage of the super polymerizations in the sideboard. This deck is already really choked on extra deck space, so I'm impressed that he was able to find room. I think he cut the Chimera Tech for it. Like, he's not even playing Chimera Tech. He just has a Cyber Dragon in his side deck as a beater. He can't even make Chimera Tech. And this actually came up in his match versus, I believe, Alifia, because he was fighting for top 8. I think it was one of his games for top 8 versus Alifia, and Alifia had left a Cyber Dragon and a Catastor in play, and Chai-T was not able to do anything with it. So even if you don't have the Catastor or the Chimera Tech, it is going to come up, especially if you have that Cyber Dragon in your side deck, like Chai-T does. So he just took the risk that he was going to see more heroes than Machinas, and it paid off for him. He made it all the way to top 4 with Diva Hero, which is a very impressive showing. Sideboard's got a lot of 1-ofs. I do want to talk about Neospatian Grand Mole, one of the most underrated cards in the meta right now. When everyone is summoning Absolute Zero or summoning these crazy boss monsters like Dark Arm Dragon, you just kind of need a no bullshit answer to those cards, and Neospatian Grand Mole is like the best one. It's really, really strong, especially you have stuff like Return in case it gets deprisoned, Call of the Haunted, that sort of stuff to recur it, or in the Neospatian deck that we just looked at, you have ways to tutor it using Foolish Burial or Armageddon Knight. So Neospatian Grand Mole, definitely one of the best cards in the format, right now at least in the meta, it's one of the best cards, because it is one of the only cards that answers Absolute Zero at +1, which is very, very rare. Shoutouts to Chai-T for their top 4 finish. And moving on. What do we got? What do we got next? Oh, top 4 also. A true hero. A true hero. Becoming a true villain. Playing Blackwings. Triple Vayu, no Grepher. That is some crackhead energy. I don't understand it, but it worked out really well for a true hero. He's also main decking that main deck Devastation Virus. He's been a fan of main decking one of these in Diva Hero, the deck he normally plays, hence his name. But I'm surprised to see him maining it here in Blackwings. It obviously did very well for him. It actually won him one of his games in top 4 through crazy circumstances. It's actually a very powerful card. But it is a high-risk card. This card actually does nothing versus Hero Beat. Yes, if they are playing Divas, you can hit the Divas and the Gilmans if they've drawn them. But usually, you're sacrificing a better monster than what the Gilman would have made anyway, or what the Diva would have made anyway. So, deck Devastation Virus, a little bit sus versus Hero Beat, and also a little bit sus versus Blackwings. The only real quote-unquote cards you're actually hitting are like Blizzard and Kalut, and then sometimes the one Gale. Hitting a Vayu, yes, it does discard it from the hand, but like you're putting the Vayu in the grave for them. They're probably like, thank you, I wanted this. This is something that I wanted. I do like that he's on a low count of trap cards, because I do think this deck can really struggle into Royal Decree. Royal Decree is really, really insane versus Blackwings if you kind of overload on the trap cards. It is definitely an exploitable weakness if you have too many trap cards. But that being said, he's also got the triple Book of Moon. So he basically just said, fuck it, I'm not going to face Hero Beat. Nobody's bringing it, because Book of Moon's not that great versus Hero Beat, and neither is Deck Dev. So his main deck is not configured super well for Hero Beat. But he just said, fuck it, I'm not going to see it. I'm just going to play the most powerful deck I can, and it worked out well for him. I'm surprised he's not playing Grepher with triple Vayu. I'm really surprised by that. I feel like you could definitely play like 2 Vayu, and that's totally chill if you're not playing the Greffers. But what do I know? What do I know, folks? He's the one in 3rd place in the tournament, and I am not. The sideboard has some interesting ones. People are probably going to be asking why Fissure. It is to kill Consecrated Light specifically. If your opponent has Consecrated Light plus another monster, Fissure will usually target the Consecrated Light because it has 0 attack. So it's a good way to just get that little guy out of play. Double Fossil Dino helps versus Frogs. Double Cyber Dragon, best anti-meta card in the format right now. Double Bottomless in the side. This comes in the mirror. And then, of course, he's got the 1 Light Mirror, the 1 Deck Dev. A little bit light for fairies, but again, like, Are you going to see the fairy deck? Are you going to run into the one fairy player in the tournament? No, that's just not going to happen apparently. So you can skimp on those sideboard cards. And me as a fairy player would love if you started cutting Light Mirror from your sideboard. Please, please, please start cutting it. Please. Moving on to second place. Second place, also Blackwing deck, Duck Tracy. A lot of Blackwing players in this event. I'm not sure if it was just because everyone was like kind of gunning for some of the matchups that came to hate out Hero Beat, or if some of the people are trying to conceal what they're actually bringing to Nats next weekend, so they just wanted to play something kind of safe, kind of chill for this weekend's RBET. This is a very interesting list from Duck Tracy. He's got a lot of tech cards. He's got that enemy controller instead of the mind control. This can work nicely with Blizzard. It can also work nicely switching a monster to defense for Shura. He's got one compulsory, a card I'm a big fan of. Most decks can probably just play one copy of it. That's pretty strong. One Dust Tornado in the main. A lot of people maining that Dust Tornado. I'm not really sure why. Just an extra piece of back removal, I guess. But yeah, main deck Starlight Road. 14 traps. Pretty heavy trap count into Royal Decree. And it did actually cost him in the finals. One thing I want to talk about before we talk about the finals is these Prohibitions. They were actually very good for him on camera. They were really, really strong. And I think Prohibition is one of those like very skill-intensive cards that you need to know the meta. You need to know what people are putting in their decks. You need to know what decks are doing. But if you have the right knowledge, the right meta knowledge, and you can assess situations properly, Prohibition becomes one of the best cards in the format. So I'm pretty stoked to see it here in Duck Tracy's side. It shows confidence in himself as a player, and it makes sense that he made it all the way to second place with the cards powerful as Prohibition. And onto the first place list, which is just incredibly based, is Ghost Rider's Dragon deck list. Dragon Glarbo, Dragon Glurbo, Dragon Tarbo deck list. This is one of the craziest deck lists I've ever seen. It's like just insanity. I can't even begin to describe what this deck does. You look at it and you're kind of like, yeah, it does this. And then you're like, wait, no, it doesn't. But then you're like, wait, yes, it does. You feel me? This is not your average dragon deck list. This is not your grandfather's dragon deck list where he's sending 3 Wyvern and a red med to be able to bring it back 3 times. This is activate Future Fusion, send 3 Whitestone of Legend, search 3 Blue Eyes, and then use that as a functional draw 3, and then spam all of these discard draw spells as well as Super Rejuvenation to draw your entire deck. Usually what he'll do is he'll try to set up a turn where he has an Instant Fusion Debris Dragon set up, where he sets up Red Med plus Bryonic on the first turn, and then he sets up a bunch of Rejuvenations to draw a bunch of cards as well. So he'll end his turn usually with 6 cards in hand, a Bryonic, a Red Med, and maybe 1 or 2 cards set, which is terrifying. And then on his next turn, he usually has that Heavy Storm plus whatever else to sort of push through whatever it is you've contributed to your board. And OTK you. So that's kind of like his overall game plan. It is a combo deck, but the combo kind of takes place over 2 or 3 or sometimes even 4 turns. So it's weird to call this a combo deck in a traditional sense because it's not trying to like draw Exodia all in one turn, or it's not trying to like Magical Explosion you. But it is a combo deck in a sense that like you need to draw a specific combination of cards in order to make all of your stuff kind of flow together. He utilizes all the best draw cards in the game. Card destruction is an absolute monstrosity in this deck. If you are going up against this deck, if you have access to your Solemn Judgment, card destruction is usually the card you want to Solemn. Either that or Super Rejuvenation. Those are the cards you definitely want to be looking at Solemning. Yeah, and then of course the sideboard, very, very innovative stuff. He's got 3 Consecrated and 1 for 1. 1 for 1 can either get that Consecrated or it can grab you the Whitestone of Legend. So it has a dual purpose, and on top of that, you could even pitch the Whitestone of Legend to search a Blue Eyes, which is really nice. Triple Lightning Vortex. This card was insane. It outed Fossil Diners for him. It outed basically everything that was shutting him off, Thunder Kings, whatever, the whole weekend, Vanities, Fiends, that sort of thing. And then on top of that, if you discard a dragon, it powers up your Super Rejuvenation. So oftentimes the discard is paid for on the other side thanks to the Super Rejuvenation, which is strong as hell. Double Royal Decree. This clutched for him versus Blackwings. Absolutely dominated the Blackwing covered field the entire weekend. Giant Trunade for extra back removal. My Body is a Shield. For Fairy matchup, you bring that in to help deal with Herald of Orange Light. Morphing Jar, which is just an insane card in general. It's just another card destruction in some matchups, so you get to play 2 of those functionally. Also, some matchups, they're going to read like maybe a set Debris Dragon or a set Vortex Trooper or something like that. They attack into your Morphing Jar, and they're just like, oh, it's Jover. It's just Jover. And then you got Card Trooper to help trade with what is that guy? Thunder King, which is an issue for this deck. And then you got a second Drago in case your opponent brings in crows for the first one. Like, let's say the opponent's playing like frogs. So from frogs, the way you want to play this matchup is you'll crow the Drago, and then you'll have Battle Fader or Gores to survive the turn. And then you'll try to grind back with enemy controllers or whatever, enemy controller, Vanity Scene, that kind of thing, Soul Exchange. But if he brings in the second Drago, it makes it that much more difficult to have 2 crows plus a Battle Fader, or 2 crows plus a Gorse Drag, whatever, and be able to stabilize. So yeah, Guacamero Drago, super important card for this deck. Gotta have the second one as well. Really, really impressive stuff. I have never seen someone pilot a deck so well as I've seen Ghost Rider pilot this dragon deck. It was a real treat to watch him play. If you guys haven't already caught up on the VOD, watched the finals match, watched those matches, definitely check it out, because he's an exceptional player across multiple formats, and it's just so cool to see an expert at work. It's a very rare thing. Some people put a lot of time into their decks. Ghost Rider is definitely one of those people. He's innovated the hell out of this deck. He's personally responsible for starting the Reckless Greed trend and the Vortex Trooper stuff, and like, he's just made a lot of really good changes to this deck, and it definitely paid off for him this tournament. He's also not really had a bad tournament this year. He's pretty much the only person playing Dragon Turbo that's topped this year, but I think he hasn't done worse than top 16 in a tournament that he's entered this year, which is insanely high testament to his player skill. This is definitely one of the more skill testing combo decks in the game. Definitely you're going to need to practice with it if you want to play it, but it's really solid stuff, and I'm really impressed by it. I definitely can't wait to try it out myself. And then last but definitely not least, I want to show you guys one bonus deck list from the top 16. I usually try to do this for the people who stick around all the way to the end. The bonus deck list I'm going to show you guys is Ardos Ancient Gear deck. Now, Ardos just barely bubbled. He made it to top 16. I believe he was like 10, I think it was 11th. I think it was 11th place, so he just barely bubbled. Very unlucky, but he has such a sweet looking deck. I couldn't not showcase it. We saw it a little bit on stream. He's got Gaia Power in his deck list. Really powerful technology. This lets you power up your machine monsters so that they can get over Blackwing monsters. Ancient Gear Dragon plus Gaia Power gets over Shura plus Kalut or Sirocco plus Kalut. So it just turns your guy into a really, really difficult to deal with threat. Sideboard, he's got all of the power stuff. More Ancient Gear Boys to deal with Battle Recruiters, Raikos, that type of thing. Dynas to help deal with the opposing Faders, Cores, that type of stuff. His own Faders, which can combo with his Cyber Valleys, or they can become tribute fodder for his Gear Dragons if Gear Town is in play. And then, of course, Vortex to deal with, like, you know, Vanities, that type of stuff. And then Decree to deal with heavy back row stuff that can cause you issues. Sighting Zombie World is really cool too, because if you activate Zombie World, it stops your opponent from going Cyber Dragon and then contact fusing with your machines, because all of your machines are no longer machines, they are zombies. However, it is a little bit double-sided. It does shut off your own limiter removal, and it does shut off a few other things that I think there's like 1 or 2 other synergies. I think it's like Gear Frame Equip and stuff gets shut off by Zombie World. So you have to be careful by it. You have to be careful about it. You can't just bring it in not knowing what it is it's doing. But yeah, really solid stuff to Ardos. I'm excited to see what he does in the future as well. He's a really strong player, and I think he's on the come up. Shout out the White Raven. Anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in this weekend. Again, one last time, RBET Moreno Valley and RBET Orlando signups are now open. Me and the people involved with this have put a lot of work into these events, and we can't wait to party with you guys and hang out with you guys at these events and have just have a really blast. That doesn't make any sense. Have a really good time at these events, playing for some really high prize cards and playing the format that we all love, and, you know, just meeting friends and like just having a good time. Like it's like a lads night, you know. These are just gonna be lads night events. They're gonna be a vibe, you know. The vibe is gonna be correct on both of them. So check the description below for signups for these. And thank you guys for 10K. I'm sure we'll hit it before the time this video is over. By the time this video has been out for a day, I'm sure I've hit 10K. So preemptive thank you for that as well. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.